Here we are again with our study in, maybe you would call it a study in anticipation. Because I can't speak for you who are watching or other people, but the anticipation in my heart is growing that the second coming of Jesus Christ is getting closer. It's drawing near. And I'm excited. I'm hopeful in this world. I mean, it's like every day. I keep saying that. Every day there's more crazy stuff. There's more things that are upside down and backwards. And in the midst of all that, I trust that you are depending on the grace of God, that you're receiving the grace and peace through Jesus Christ that he offers, that Paul greeted the early church in a time when they thought it had to be getting close because their world was pretty crazy. But in tonight's study, we're going to look at reasons why I believe it makes it clear that it's getting soon for the time of his return. And we talked about last week, nobody knows. There's false prophets. The Bible calls them liars, who say that they can pin down the day and the hour, because Jesus himself told us that no one knows the day or the hour, only the Father in heaven. But we are to know what the Bible refers to as seasons. We're to be aware where there's signs, there's indicators. If you think about it, the time of year that we're in right now, fall, winter's coming. And there are people that say, well, this is the first day of spring, this is the first day of summer, this is the first day of winter, and they pin it down to a day. What's up with that? How can you pin it down to a specific day, a season? You know the season is here because there's indicators. The indicators for the season that we're in now, the fall, autumn. The days are definitely getting shorter. The daylight hours, we see that clearly. There's indicators in the creation. Leaves are turning color. They're starting to fall. Fruit on trees has ripened. Some is already done. And it's getting cooler. In the evening, this evening as I was outside, you could tell when that sun drops, and it's been warm the past few days, it's definitely getting cooler. So we can tell by we don't know the exact day, but there's all these indicators that we can tell that the season has changed. It's very much the same way in God's Word, where Jesus tells us in Matthew chapter 24, verses 3 through 14, that there's indicators. He says, you won't know the day or the hour, but you need to discern the times and the seasons. And I'm going to turn to that in my Bible, and I'm going to read that, because we're going to look at this passage in Matthew, because I think it's critical for us to be aware. The season is here. So, bear with me. Matthew chapter 24, verses 3 through 14. And Jesus has been talking with his disciples and telling them that nobody knows when it's going to happen. He's been telling them that the temple was going to be destroyed. He was predicting what would happen not that long after his death. But in verse 3, it says, now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, The disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" Verse 4, "And Jesus answered, and he said to them, Take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many, and you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet, for nation will rise up against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. And all these things are the beginning of sorrows. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended and will betray one another and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and abound, and the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and here it is, and then the end will come. So just as we can predict seasons, or not predict, but we can see them coming, so it is. Jesus gave us indicators, things that we could see. In verse 4, when he answered them, and he says, take heed that you're not deceived. How are you not deceived? By knowing the truth yourself, because there will come false prophets, there'll come liars, there'll come deceivers. Rely on God's word. Read it for yourself. And there's many places I could have pages of scriptural references to the second coming of Jesus Christ. And I mentioned some of those before. And my list, there's just a few out of Daniel, out of Mark, out of 2 Peter, out of Malachi, Revelation. And the things that are happening, that are going on in our world, there are earthquakes. We may not be too much aware. There are famines. There are wars. There's rumors of wars. Are there any plagues, pestilences, viruses? We see these things. And Jesus said, when these things, the end's not yet, but boy, he's basically saying is, take notice. Listen up. Pay attention. And as we see these things coming and settling in, and I would encourage you, don't be fearful. Get excited. Get focused. Do not be, as he mentioned, one of the ones in verse 12. Because of the lawlessness, evil is good and good is evil. You can't get any more lawless than that in our world today. The love of many will grow cold. They'll be overwhelmed and influenced. I encourage you. Endure. Stand strong. Build your faith in God. We will continue next week, and we'll be in Matthew chapter 24 again, and covering some of these verses and talking about the other scriptures that relate to them, that just verify what Matthew's talking about there, what Jesus is saying in Matthew, as Matthew has recorded it there. So, God bless and take care, and be hopeful, be positive, be ready.